Okay, so we continue. Document analysis. So basically now what we're doing is looking a bit closer into how the qualitative analysis methods can be used in document analysis and in interviews and surveys. Document analysis, as you know, it's you collect different documents. For evaluations, you always have to have the program document or the strategy or whatever you are evaluating. It's your main document. Then you are also looking at different kinds of reports, progress reports, annual reports, final reports of the program itself. You might also be looking at if there is a program that is financing projects. You might also be looking at the reports of the projects themselves. We did an evaluation of the Interreg Europe program, and we had to actually assess the individual projects. So we had to look through the project plans and their interim reporting and final reporting as well, not only the program. Then some internal documents. These are good for gossip. I like them. If you can get your hands on them. For example, meeting minutes or something like steering group minutes or their internal procedures or things like that, whatever you can find. Then studies or evaluation reports made from the same program or a similar program or of the topic. Also, the website is usually useful for document analysis. And you use the document analysis in different phases. When you're writing your proposal, you look at the documents so that you try to get a good picture of what it is about, and that you yourself look professional for the client, that you have paid attention and you have researched and you are knowledgeable about the topic. So you need to do some document analysis before that. But then once the evaluation starts, the document analysis is typically the first thing that you start doing after a theory of change. But even the theory of change is based on initially document analysis. Where you use the document analysis, you use it quite often for the background chapter of the report. And the reason why it's important to start with that is that you need to look at the documents to see what are the things you should be asking in the survey and in the interviews, so that you need to be knowledgeable enough so that when you go out and collect your primary data, that you actually ask the right things. Because you only have one chance. After you have defined your interview guidance, you shouldn't start modifying it. Survey, once it's done and sent, then that's it. So you actually need to make sure that what you're going to do is going to be good, and it will give you the answer to your evaluation questions. So yeah, start with document analysis and familiarize yourself with the program. Okay, now I need some water. Yes. Yeah, and then. So in the same way, this is actually from a real example, and you can see that we did this that we collected information thematically from the documents. We went through, actually, I think we went through hundreds of documents, if I remember correctly. Yes, because local development groups, we have 54 of them, and we looked at their annual reports from several years. So what we did was that we were looking for the information in the documents, and we were looking for certain things. So this is thematic analysis. So what we did was that this is the extraction of the information. So we had these topics. Actually, the whole thing, innovation was one of the 7 topics we were looking for. So if this was an Excel sheet, it would be like on the next street because it was so long. But basically what we did was that even as a word search, we said, has innovation been mentioned in the document? Yes or no? If it was a yes, then we checked that whether they spoke about innovation in funded projects or innovation in their own work, or whether they problematized the innovation, whether they mentioned any good practices. So we had certain things that we were trying to look for in all of the documents. And we did this to, about 200 documents. But of course we were I think we were 6 people doing this, so it wasn't for one person to do this only. But yeah, this way we could find that, for example, that most of the documents did not mention innovation or the annual reports. And then after you get this information, because this is just the extraction, then you would start coding the, what they actually said. That, first you collect, and then you code, and then you analyze. So this we actually did by hand in Excel. Excel is pretty handy for these things, but of course you can do this in any software. But so this is one way of going through the documents that you are looking for if you're looking for certain things related to your evaluation questions. And you can use this same format for any document. What we did was basically we had the evaluation questions and certain themes that we were looking, and then this line with in bold, this was actually related to the judgment criteria directly. So we were looking for information for the judgment criteria. And this actually simplifies the work quite much, and it reduces the work because we were only looking at certain things. And in so-called happy case, they didn't mention anything about innovation, and then it was one document done, thank you, no need to look for it anymore. So you could hack down the pile of documents quite fast because you're only looking for certain things and not the entire universe. For the interviews, I think Olha has spoken about the interviews, so this is just a recap. We use interviews in different phases of the evaluation. Sometimes we have these what we call starting interviews, or scoping interviews to speak to people who can get us on quickly on the right page, and who can give a general overview of the things, or who can point us towards the right informants, or who can tell us about the problems with this or that or that. For the scoping interviews, I usually like to speak to the person who has been working in the place the longest, because they will give a long history, and sometimes it's really amazing. You get this yes, when I started working with the EU funds, Finland joined the EU in 1995. I started in 1995, and I can tell you exactly what has happened. And you sit there for 3 hours and you drink so much coffee that your stomach hurts, but you got a really good story. And then you know who you need to speak to and what kind of changes were done and all kinds of things. So you can do interviews in the beginning, or then you can do interviews as for data collection. So, for example, we would interview, let's say, every beneficiary who received money from the Regional Development Fund, or let's say like SAPART funding, we interview the management or something like that. And for the interviews, we usually, well, we have some different target groups. But the idea is usually not to, like if you send a survey, let's say to the beneficiaries, then you don't interview them, because then you get the same point of view that if you have a lot of people you need to get information for, then you use the more economical method. You don't want to do 235 interviews, or your client will not pay for it. Or if they pay for it, that's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, sometimes I think we do send questionnaires to the beneficiaries, yeah, but most of the time some for interviews, because we need more detailed information.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, we do the same, and also I noticed that sometimes it's difficult to send a survey to a beneficiary who has received, let's say, funding for 10 projects. Because you're asking, for example, how successful was your project? And then they say, well, one of them was successful, one of them wasn't. So if there's a Likert scale, they will just tap something and it doesn't mean anything. So sometimes what we do is that we send, for example, for one evaluation I did for a local development strategy, we sent surveys to those organizations who had received funding only once. And then the rest, who were not that many, the rest we interviewed. Or that you interview the ones who have the biggest projects, who have the most successful projects, or who have most projects, or who have failed projects. They are very informative. They might not want to talk to you because their project failed, but they are very, they give you a lot of information. So yeah, it's not completely true that you don't interview beneficiaries, but you have to have some kind of a strategy so that you don't overburden them. That you send them a survey, then you interview them, then you ask them to come to a workshop, and then they are like, guys, I'm so sick and tired of your evaluation. I don't want to hear anything from you anymore. So you need to balance a bit. But then actually also, so this data collection method, and sometimes we also use interviews towards the end, when we see that like there's something I don't quite understand. Like, what is it? Why are they saying things like this? Then you would like, in Finland it's quite informal, so you can, like if you know some of the people, then you can just call them and say that are you able to tell me why this is like this? So it can be called an interview, but it's actually a 15-minute phone conversation. Or it can be a deeper interview where you interview certain people. And one of the things I said was that, you have to have sensible interview questions, and you should look like you know something of the topic. There's nothing worse than going to an interview where you seem like totally off the rails, and you're like, I have this question here, or just like reading the question and not understanding what they are saying, and not being able to ask a follow-up question or something like that. Also, I know that for some places there is some kind of, we also do it a bit, that hierarchical issues. That it might be that, for example, a minister might not want to speak to a junior associate. So then we would have to up the game a bit, and then it would be the director who interviews the minister, even though the associate might actually know it way better. But then you have to have some kind of a diplomatic eye for this. But yeah, you should know about the topic. I heard now that I was following some webinar about use of AI in evaluation, And there are some companies, especially Americans, who are using chatbots as interviewees. And it's, I don't know, it's I kind of see it as slightly pointless. That, yeah, because, you know, or is the chatbot already clever enough that they are able to ask, you know, the useful follow-up question? I don't know.
They can be trained, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So even though they are not right now the proper instrument, in time I think they will become.
Yeah, yeah.
If a respondent finds out, they might be very annoyed.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it would be like a, yeah, it would be like a chatbot that they ask a question and the respondent responds, and then they ask a second question, but it's like an automat. In that sense, that could be a survey as well. But
With open questions.
with open questions, yes, exactly. But this is coming, so yeah.
I don't know, from creation course environment, who would be keen to respond any questions in the floor.
Yeah.
That would be a big obstacle.
Yeah.
Especially
No, I think also, I'm thinking, for example, at the, especially for example, local level, if I speak to like a mayor or something, I would never get, you know, a local mayor to respond to a chatbot. And that they would never, you know, respond to me either. So, because a lot of these things is actually about, you know, interpersonal relations, so that you're able to talk to a person, ask questions, and you also have to seem to be reliable. So it's not, yeah, I don't know. I think the chatbot is still a bit off. But yeah, so this
also,
is, yeah.
Sometimes the interviewees, they need a shoulder to cry on.
Yeah.
And they need that like emotion.
Yeah.
Because usually what happens is like they start interviewing the story about how bad things are, and they after they tell their story, then we can start like going to the interview guidelines.
Yes, and sometimes you go totally off the guidelines. I have had, during my career, I have my record in the longest interview that was supposed to last 1 hour, lasted 2 hours and 37 minutes. The guy just would not stop talking. I think I tried to stop it 6 times. And this was like, and then I just...
How the chatbot would that?
Yeah, I think the chatbot would say like, I think, thank you, that was enough, goodbye, and switch off. Yeah, I managed to finish that interview by only saying that, like, I'm really sorry, I have to go because the kindergarten is closing in 23 minutes, and I have to go and get my kid. And it was actually even true, so then I just, you know, I had to leave. And then the shortest, now I never understood why this person wanted to be agreed to be interviewed in the first place. 15 questions, 6.5 minutes. But he didn't really say anything. It was like, yes, no, I don't know. So that was completely pointless. I think I spent more time organizing that interview than actually having it. But yes, so once you have had your interview, how you transcribe this. This is also what we have done. We actually did this in Excel. See, I like Excel, so I really do like Excel. You can also use, well, depending on the company or whatever. So we have done. So when I work with other people, then I don't write the interviews in Word, but I do the interview summaries per question on Excel, because going through the Word documents, somebody has to like go through question by question. You might end up having 40 Word documents open at the same time. You have to somehow be able to manage all of this. So actually Excel is pretty handy. Any of these qualitative analysis databases are very handy because you can define, you know, a question and then they will be able to, they will give you the extract of this question for all of them. So here we will simply have the topics and the questions and then the answers. So background question, how long have you been involved in regional development? This is basically just to get the person to talk and to get a kind of history. And then topic 1, operation of the regional development program. How well does the program operate? What could be improved? And then what are the most important changes you have seen in the area that are related to the program? So the results. So what you could do then, if this is an Excel, that you can just take one column like this, and then you will get everybody's answers to the same question, like this, one after the other. Of course, then you would have to code them somehow and analyze them. You find that you either do thematic or a thematic coding or something that, what are you looking for in the interviews? What are the things you're looking in the answers? So for example here, I think I have it here on the next page. What you would do is, first of all, if you do this in Excel, make a copy of the sheet. Don't start coding on top of the sheet where you have your interview information, because you will lose it. So first of all, make a copy of the sheet and then start coding. So for example, how long have you been involved in regional development? Then you would code the years, for example, 5, 10, whatever. How well does the program operate? You make a drop-down list, or you give it a number, that 1 quite badly, 2, 1 very bad, 2 bad, 3 okay, 4 quite good, 5 very good. So based on their answer, then you could then code it this way. And what could be improved, you can then create a drop-down list or have some themes or something that you say that what could be improved governance, what could be improved funding, or something like that. Yes?
And what to do if many missing?
What, many?
Many missing replies.
So that there's no answer.
Replies and you can
More interviews. Sorry. Yeah, or use another data source. Yeah. And no, if you have very little data, then you wouldn't use it. No, then you would use another source. That, for example, in the documents you find this and that, but the interviewees didn't have an opinion on it or something like that. If there's too little information, it usually makes no sense to report it, or then you just say, you just say that it was inconclusive or not sufficient evidence or something like that.
But how you code this? What could be improved? It could be 3 categories. It could be 15 categories. When you start, you don't know the end maybe. So
okay.
Approach this.
Yes, then you would take this column out, and then you would make kind of topics like this. That you would take this column, and then you would make it in a separate sheet, and then you would have, for example, themes. Let's say what could be improved. So governance, environmental awareness, funding, and then you would do 1, 0, 1, 0, and then you can continue. But yeah, on this kind of list, then you wouldn't be able to do this. You would have to take it out to another detailed analysis. Yeah. Yeah, and the same thing also with this one, the results of the program. What are the most important changes? If you find that they only say one thing, that's okay. But yeah, here quite a lot of this would be, I would say, inductive coding. Some of it you would be able to see when you look at all of the things that you see that, okay, most of them are talking about money. So you could see some things, but then there might be some categories that just come up. I will show you in the survey that you will see the thing. Okay, yes, so survey. Even though you can do quantitative analysis on the survey, there's still the wild card, which is the open text fields. I mean, I love surveys. I think surveys are fantastic. But then you also have to be, and I like having open text fields there, but an open text field creates about 5 or 6 times more work than a simple like numerical question. But they also give you 5 or 6 times more information. So you have to balance it a bit. You can have some of them, but not too many. So it's this is where the this research and evaluation, it's kind of like between art and science, that you need to balance a bit. Depending on whether you are able to get the information in a structured format or not, whether you are able to state the categories in advance, or whether you are actually exploring the opinions. Sometimes we do it so that we have in the surveys, for example, that we ask for the opinions, and then we have a box under it saying that would you like to elaborate on your answers? And why are you saying what you are saying? And then, then they can write things. Then there are some things like where you actually want an open answer. So for example, yeah, I mean, like this is just a thing that I just came up with. That, what are the main development needs in your town? This is something where you want the people's opinions. So, yeah. So sometimes there are, okay, I mean, here this is a bit clean in the sense that that there's only one topic per answer. This is usually not the case. If people start writing about, for example, what are the development needs in your town, they would write like this long, and then you would be coding like infrastructure, jobs, services, leisure, inhabitants, blah, blah, blah. So you would be finding what they are saying, and then you would be coding them like this, and coming up with categories this way as you go. And then refining some categories as well.
And subcategories, so that the services would be
exactly.
Like services, infrastructure also.
Exactly. So then it could be that after your first categorization, you would actually take the services to be a theme, and then you would have, for example, social services, education, and yeah, and they would be, the codes would be quite detailed, and then you would have like themes which collect the subcategories. But yeah, so this is what we would do for the for open answers. But this is what you could do also for the interviews, that you look for like themes. Of course, nowadays, I know this is a lot of work. So nowadays, if you just send this to ChatGPT, it will spit you an answer in like 5 seconds, but it's not correct. The answers are not always correct, because I've noticed that the ChatGPT, at least it takes the first categories and it writes a lot of things about it, then it forgets some, and it's not. It can give you some ideas, but you shouldn't trust it, because this way, then, if you sum the ones, then you will see that most of the respondents said that the infrastructure is a big development, that one of the most important development need is related to infrastructure. So then you would get this. But of course, if you have hundreds of open text field answers, then This will take quite a long time to go through them, but this will also give you a lot of insights. This is the thing. It's very work intensive, but it's very useful as well. So
they also edit AI assistants analyzing. But I haven't really tried it.
Yeah, I know we have. I have sometimes tried doing word clouds or some other AI assistants. I know that some of the programs they have this, and they would create categories. And I think, nowadays this is easier, so you don't necessarily have to go through this, manually. But on the other hand, it's if you're doing, for example, using MaxQDA, you will have to do this. You are the one who should create the categories, in a sense. Like the AI-based solutions are good for helping you to define the categories, because they could say, for example, that you could split all of the entire column. You could give that to the chatbot or like a ChatGPT and say, what are the categories? Like what are the main things that the people are saying, and then you could get the categories quite easily. But I would still not trust it 100%.
So in a way, it's more useful for experienced evaluators who can define if it's fixed and if additional categories or adjustment, versus new amateur who would trust it and
I would say that it's useful for everybody, but don't trust it. So don't make it don't think that it does your work for you, because it doesn't fully.
Would make it the starting point.
Yeah.
And then to go.
Yes. It's a good starting point because it helps you to summarize the information, but still you should do work. That's because the thing is that once you go, you do a summary, for example, of the interviews, and in a more hierarchical company, the juniors do interviews, and they might do the summary of the interviews, and they give that to the partner, who then makes, for example, recommendations. So if what you have summarized about the interviews is not correct, then the recommendations are not going to be correct either. And then the partner is coming back to you and saying that, why is it this way? That, why are you saying that this was the most important thing that came out of the interviews? And you're like, because ChatGPT told me so. So basically, that it's going to come and bite you in the butt later. So you should be able to stand behind your own analysis. And I say own analysis. Yes, we do use AI, and we do use all of these things to help our lives, but it does not replace our analytical skills. I think that's the most important thing. And I would never dare to give the ChatGPT work as mine, because it's not mine. Also, it might not understand all of the things that are in there. So it's, I'm one of these people who actually works more to be on the secure side. That I find often that if you think there is a very good shortcut, it will cost you later in the process. That's my experience with all of this. Every time you think that, that's nice, yes, I don't have to worry about it, I will later. It's always the future me who comes, who has this in the end. But yes, but I think the good news is that for the document analysis and the interviews and the surveys, you can use basically same principles. I think that's the main thing, that you need to organize the data and code it and analyze it somehow. But it's pretty straightforward, and also if you then already at the starting phase, you already created the judgment criteria, and you know what you are looking for, then it will not be so extremely burdensome either, because it will help you to focus and what are the things that you're looking for, that you don't need to worry about everything. Oh yes, one more thing about the open text field answers. It's useful to have the category irrelevant. Usually in surveys, you get answers from people who are either passionate about the topic in a positive way or a negative way. So you get the people who really hate it and who really love it. But the people in the middle, they're kind of okay and they don't bother. A few years ago, we did an evaluation of the Common Agricultural Support. We sent a survey to farmers, all of the farmers in Finland, so about 48,000. And the open field answers, they were so much fun. Oh, that was so much fun. So we got everything from good answers, very analytical, very detailed, to don't you have anything better to do than send out these stupid surveys, to verses of the Bible, to swearing, really nice, like sort of very imaginative stuff, and or then just like, I don't know. So there's everything between moon and sky there. So it's good to have a category irrelevant, because some of the coding, it might be entertaining, but not very relevant to any of this. One of the things so usually if you send a survey to the authorities, you usually get nicer answers and more relevant answers. But there was one, I think there was somebody sitting next to these motivational pictures, because all of the open answers had things like live, laugh, learn, or then a coffee a day. A coffee is a wonderful start for the day. It was really funny reading through that person's answers, but none of them were relevant.
And did you have experience that somehow when they responding, they use ChatGPT to respond?
No. But actually, one of the things which is hard is when they answer and they say that to question 4, it's see my answer in question 3. And so then you have to look at the individual line and then copy paste. That's the hard one, so you can't really get a good.
Sometimes we use you as a control question. When you have a long survey, you put something like please tick no and continue. And those guys who are just ticking the boxes, and it was the case once, almost 10% of this is a clear sign that the survey was very long.
Yeah.
10% of them answered wrong to the control question. Yeah, surveys they are hard. They're good, but they're hard. And they, unfortunately, they produce just as good information as the questions and the categories are.
So what do we do with these outliers? If we love it, I hate it, we discard it?
No, you have to report it in the sense that that we see that there are that there is a group who is very positive about it, and there's a group who is very negative about it. But then you also look at the background questions. So, for example, there you could find that, let's say in the case of farmers, that the ones who have a very small farm, they are more negative about the benefits of the agricultural policy than the ones who have a bigger farm. So you start cross-checking the background things, because then you can see the relationships possibly. or you might not. Or then you just state average, that on average people are relatively happy, but the spread is quite large. That, yeah, but you have to be faithful to the data, unfortunately, that you can't, yeah, but if the data is bad, then you can't use it. That's also the other thing. If you don't have enough responses to a survey, then you have to report it as if it was qualitative information. But yes, so yeah, so then, but yeah, so I think the point of what I'm trying to tell, like about the whole of the day, is that actually handling qualitative data, it's relatively easy, but burdensome, but it's fun. So yeah, but yeah, so the same principles apply to different kinds of data collection methods. I lost a sentence here. So yeah, actually, yeah, so now I didn't want to have group work, but actually a discussion about how much qualitative coding have you already done, like without knowing that you have done it. Yeah?
I have done a lot of, but like I knew that I was.
You knew what you were doing. Okay, that's good. Yeah. And others? I guess Danielle, you must have done this.
But mostly related to the research.
Yeah. Yeah. No? Yeah, because what I notice also is that sometimes the like qualitative, in qualitative research, that the analysis is not very rigorous. That yes, you do interviews and then you summarize them, but are you able to say that this was actually a representative analysis? So that's why I think it's important to do the step in the middle between writing and so you actually like sort it out and analyze. And then you will be able to, back up your arguments and say that this is what the data says. Okay, so the sentence should continue. That what kind of use case do you think the qualitative coding could have in your work or in your research? Do you see how you could use this?
Well, for me, definitely, as I already worked with a lot of research related to vulnerable groups that have very specific position in society, and also they are very complicated to apply different kinds of methods like surveys. So, for example, we are working with homeless people, they will not answer surveys, or some of them are even not capable to do so. So we are actually using a lot of interviews and qualitative data analysis for those specific vulnerable groups.
Yeah.
When I looked at how it looks like in Excel, I've never used Excel for qualitative analysis.
Yeah.
But now I see some benefits of it, like when you especially have very specific for the questions and you want to double check, cross check what they answered the previous questions. So yeah, when it comes to analyzing one specific question, for example, this one, it is very handy. But if you want to see like what were demographics and like this, I see that it could be useful.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you met people that use Stata or R or Python for coding qualitative analysis.
I think some people do. Yes. I know one of my former colleagues uses Stata for coding like the open answers for surveys. Yeah. I don't think it matters how you do the coding in the sense. It matters more that your coding makes sense. Yeah. And that you're able to produce the analysis from there. But of course, then if you use Stata, then in a sense, you can't make the like statistical significance of the qualitative data. So that's something you will not be able to do. That you will be able to look at the spread and this kind of, averages and how many of the interviewees said this and that and that. But it will never be statistically significant unless you have you're doing thousands and thousands of interviews. So this could be one. Actually, then there's another method that I have not deliberately spoken about because it's the qualitative comparative analysis, QCA, and that's kind of between quantitative and qualitative, but that is also based on coding, Boolean logic, but there the thing is that you're trying to code whether there was an outcome or not. So for example, let's say in the case of homeless people, that there's a program that helps homeless young people to get a steady apartment or something like that, and then you would check whether they are still living there after 1 year, and your outcome would be either 1 yes or 0 no, and then you would look at these kind of conditions for whether what are the general conditions, that do they have a job, do they have some kind of mental issues or abuse, substance abuse issues, do they have a strong support network or things like that. And then you could code, say that the ones who have yes or 1 for strong support network and 0 for substance abuse, then they are the ones who are more prone to still have housing after 1 year. And that is done in 101. But you need to define the concept, and you need to do quite deep research into the issues, so that you are able to see how that this is something they use it for mid-level N, so up to about 50, or around 50 cases. This is good for comparative analysis, because you have to go very deep into the details. But this is one way of doing analysis on conditions and using the qualitative coding. It's sometimes used in evaluations. I have seen a couple of those, but it's not extremely often. I know that one of my former professors at the Central European University, Carsten Schneider, he uses this for his research, and he develops it as well. But it's a very interesting way of conceptualizing it, and then trying to understand the different pathways of towards success and different pathways towards non-success.
Of experience, my supervisor used it for one of our evaluations I helped out. So
yeah.
It was evaluation of small assistance projects implemented by Peace Corps volunteers in Georgia, and we had I think 40 cases. So we did interviews, focus groups, and we coded all this information, and then we selected and did QCA, and we also then did some of the case studies with process tracing, so to go even deeper and provide more qualitative insights how each factor could have contributed success or failure.
Yes.
So very interesting.
Yes.
It's a very interesting experience.
Yes, it's very interesting. I like it very much. It's very hard because you need a lot of information, but it's very, it gives like deep information. I like it.
And plus, in this case, this client was very open-minded. What could we have done with the evaluation? So,
Yeah.
not in every case you can make this.
Yeah, this is one important thing really. I think Olha also said about this that it's not always that even if you would like to test something, you would like to use a new approach, but you have a set budget and you have a client who doesn't necessarily understand what it is that you want to do, and then you will do basically, I mean, if you work in the private sector, then you optimize for winning the project. So you do what you think the client wants. But if you know that the client is very interested in having, or like open-minded of having new approaches, then why not? I have some clients who are like that, and they say also in the terms of reference that we would like, that please suggest something different, or or like we want a new innovative way of doing this. And then we're like, okay, fine. Then there are some who say like only this way is acceptable. We want 37 interviews, and you must have at least 300 responses to the survey or something like that. It depends very much. Also, it depends on the scoring. We noticed that if the client states in the terms of reference that price is 80%, then what you do is that you go for a low price, but you offer less, because there's a line that you will never cross. I mean, for my own company, I have set a certain euro rate per day that I will never go under, because then it's not profitable in any kind of way. So if it goes under, or if I see that there's so much work that this will just, it will basically be voluntary work, then it's a no. That, so let somebody else do this. Then there are those where let's say we have now this in the Finnish Ministry of Agriculture has this tenders where price is 10% and the research plan is 50 and the quality of the team is 40. So what you do is that then you go for a very good plan and a strong team, and the price can be almost at the top maximum level, because you will not lose on the price. So that's nice. I like this because then it means that the client actually wants a good quality thing and not only cheap. So yeah, the worst one is the 100% price. The only thing that you could send in your offer is just a number, and you don't need to include anything. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, you mentioned that sometimes they might ask for code book and how it was coded. So in that case, well, you could of course change the names and like don't provide this information, but in case of small number of respondents, you still risk the confidentiality, like if they read the full transcript, they identify.
Yeah, no, it depends. Some of the clients actually want the full transcripts, which is, I don't like that. Also because quite often what I experience is that, especially if there's like if I do an interview, even if I tape it, then at one point the person tells me to please stop recording and they will tell what actually happened. So that happens quite often. At least in Finland, they don't very often ask for transcripts. They might ask for like the coded data, so that they are able to verify that the analysis was done correctly, but they don't want the raw data. Or they want for example, quantitative information. For example, we would get we would get the indicators from, let's say, the paying agency. So then the ministry could say that we want the quantitative information you got from the paying agency because the ministry paid for it anyway. But yeah, I think I have only once had to submit the raw data. But I don't like that. I really don't like that. But I know that I have seen, for example, Interreg Central Europe, where the headquarters are in Vienna. For their call for tender, they required that all survey answers and all interview transcripts must be transmitted together with the final report. But then, in that case, you have to state that in the survey when the people answer. You have to write it in the cover letter, and you have to state that also before you start interviewing people. That might give you some people who say that I don't want to be interviewed. But yeah, so you have to be open about who is going to see it. So sometimes, yeah, now I have one project where I'm supporting some strategy development, and we did this survey on what should be improved. And I got a call from one person that I actually know saying that who is going to see the results? Is it only you, or is it going to be the management board? I said, only me. I said, okay, I'll write what I think. So, because I will not submit those. So yeah, so it depends. Yeah, but whatever happens, you have to be open about it, because if you haven't told the people that you are going to submit their full transcripts, then you can't really do it. But if it's in your contract with the client, then you have to do it. The same goes actually with reporting. This is something I noticed. I don't personally like using direct quotes, for example, from surveys. I don't think it's nice. Some people do that. But if in the survey, in the cover letter, you have said that the data will be analyzed in a way that a single answer or single answer cannot be identified, then you don't have a permission to use a direct quote from the survey. Or in interviews, if you say that an official from an island from southern Croatia said XYZ, then you have a list of interviewees. There's only one person from an island near Split, then you kind of know who said what. So
there are only one.
Yeah. But yeah, so in a sense that you shouldn't. You have to a bit like journalists, that you have to protect your source, because also it will come back to you. They will not respond to any of your surveys or any of your data requests anymore if you have violated their trust. So yeah, this is why yes, a chatbot could be good, but you need to have this kind of human sensitivity to things. Actually, one of the things I will talk about a bit later with the communication things is the use of data collected in evaluations in different formats. So, for example, that you need to make sure if you're doing an evaluation, you collect a lot of data, and it depends on your deal with the client, whether you're able to use this, for example, to make a presentation in a conference. It has to be stated. You have to have you have to agree that beforehand. Also, you will need to include that information, for example, in the data collection in the survey cover letter. We had this thing where we did an evaluation of Leader 5 years ago, and we did 6 surveys to the local action groups, municipalities, administration, local people, businesses, and like pretty much everybody to try to get a good overview. And then I wanted to write an academic article about it. And then I asked the client that, can we use this data? Then he said, okay, let's have a look at what we have agreed. In our agreement, there was nothing preventing us from doing it. But since we did not include the sentence, no, actually, we wrote in the survey cover letter that this data will be used only for this evaluation. Then it was like, okay, we screwed up. So if you're going to use it, then it's going to be used in the evaluation and academic research or something. That, yeah, you can't use it for any other thing that you have stated that you will use it for. So we couldn't do it, but then we didn't want to lose all of this data. So what we actually did was that we put all of the summaries of each one of the surveys as an annex to the evaluation, so that at least somebody can use it as a baseline for something.
I have a question regarding interviews.
Yeah.
Do you always take interviews?
No, as a rule, I don't, but I don't like it because, well, there are two reasons. But I do it if my client requires me to. Let's say it this way. So, but as it is, I don't, because there are two reasons. One of them is that I've noticed that the people speak differently if they are on tape and if they are not on tape. So that's one thing. The other thing is that as I do a lot of interviews in Finnish, also Swedish, the Teams transcription is rubbish. It is absolutely incomprehensible. It makes no sense whatsoever. So going through, especially the Finnish transcription, it's more of a reading jokes than anything that makes sense. So it actually doesn't save me any time.
What about human transcribers? If you had recorded and had humans to record.
Well, since I work alone, the human would be me. So no, if I don't have to, I don't do it.
That was my follow-up question.
Yeah.
How do you feel on these transcription softwares? Because I'm a bit, I'm a bit worried about putting transcripts, like basically reporting to third parties.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing because because you have to ensure that the personal data is safe.
Yeah.
And we just did an evaluation of Erasmus Plus program in Finland, and we had to make sure actually that for the GDPR protection reasons, the data that we have for the evaluation does not leave the EU even on the server. So we were not allowed to actually store anything relating to that evaluation on Teams. We were not allowed to use Teams recording for the interviews because the servers are in the US.
Yeah.
So we had to, this was a very big thing, and it was the Finnish Ministry of Education who, they came with their GDPR lawyer to a meeting, and we were like, we had to provide, data protection, kind of like guidelines, and what kind of data, what kind of software are we using, where is that software storing the data, and who has access to it, and oh my God, it took like 3 days for the main contractor to write this. But yeah, you are right about this. It's also the same with the ChatGPT. In a sense, it's not because it's using everything that you input, it's using for its own learning.
Yeah.
So if you input, for example, interview answers in there, then you have put it out in the open. It's raw data that you have put in there. And there's no data protection on that. So this is a major thing nowadays in Europe. And you will be, it's better to be safe than sorry, I would say. But yeah, so the transcription, I know that some people use the, what is it called? There's something, can't remember what it is. But yeah, so there are different ways of transcribing the interviews. Some people use them, like the automated transcriptions. I've tried some of the Finnish ones, but really it makes no sense. So if it would save my time, I would use it, but it actually doesn't. So.
For me, it's really useful if I have transcription software that's on my computer.
Yeah.
So it doesn't leave my computer.
Yeah.
We use human transcribers, and they sign this.
Yes. Yes. If you can use human transcribers, that's good, because then you can basically sign a non-disclosure agreement. But yeah, so this is a big question. Yeah. But I personally don't like typing, because I don't type when I interview, because I can't think and write at the same, I can't think and type at the same time. So I take notes. But that's me. I know some people who are able to type when they do interviews. So it depends how you are able to handle this. Yeah. So what do you use when you are doing interviews? Do you writing? Yes. Anybody doing transcriptions? Olha, yes.
I usually type because I type quicker than I write.
Yeah.
That is the problem.
Yeah.
And I can read.
Type to computer. It's exhausting, but it's one way they will sign for this by transcription.
Yeah.
I was sharing with Robert that recently I was using Microsoft, the 365 platform, and in the new document you can upload the video and it's doing the transcription, and it was quite well.
Yes.
It was quite good. So
yes.
It took me just half an hour to go through 20 pages interview to correct it. So
Yeah. Nice.
But it also based on AI, it's using Copilot.
Yeah.
So back in the
I use some softwares, but then I realized, wait, what am I doing? I'm actually giving these people data, and you know how these people are. They're not at all careful.
Yeah.
Private data. So.
Yeah. But this is the privacy. This is and when I started working 15 years ago, this was not really an issue. But nowadays it's becoming bigger and bigger issue. Also, in the sense that the GDPR, at least in the EU, it requires you to, for example, delete from the survey system the respondents' contact details after 6 months after the ending of the project. So I have, for example, in my calendar, I have deadlines for, remove the data for XYZ. Sometimes we have these agreements where the data provider requires us to delete the data that they have sent to us, or the raw data has to be deleted after a certain amount of time. And and this is something you have to respect, because if you get busted, the GDPR fines are really nasty. and they will, yeah, they are disproportionate in a sense that they will tank a small company quite quickly. And then also that every person has the right to request what data you are storing of them in your company computers, and you have to provide it to them. We had once when there was one person who got super annoyed at something, is a beneficiary of some sort, and they asked to, it was a he, that his response to the survey gets deleted, and everything we have about him on the a company system has to be deleted. First he asked for a record of what we have of him, and then the next email was like, please delete everything. So, yeah, but this doesn't happen very often, but when it does, you actually have to take it seriously, because if they come back in 6 months' time and ask, what information do you have of me? Then the only thing that you should have of them is saying that this person should never be contacted ever again. But yeah, so this is becoming a bigger and bigger issue all the time. Okay, then we go towards reporting. And I will stop before we get to the communication. We can do the communication after the lunch break. We have now it's 1:03, and then, well, if we are faster towards the lunch break, then we are. Let's put it. Okay, so reporting. This is quite a typical final report structure. First you have an executive summary, then you have introduction. Some of this is familiar from your terms of, like from your tender. Purpose and objectives of the evaluation, evaluation process, and methodology and data, what you did. Then you introduce the program or the project or whatever you are evaluating, strategy, and you start from the kind of intervention logic to get an overall picture, and then you go towards more and more details. So first you introduce what you are assessing as a factual thing, and this is about the plan. So here we are saying what was planned to do, what was planned in terms of financing, what the idea was. And then when you go towards the evaluation findings, then you actually state what you found. So for example, you would have the funding and resources. So findings, you would have one section on like spending. And then you would have one section on the activities. So what are the things that you found during your research? And then towards the end, you have the conclusions and answers to evaluation questions. And then you have the recommendations, and then the annexes. But this is quite a typical structure. Sometimes there is a separate chapter for answering evaluation questions. But I find that that's also sometimes is kind of repetitive from the conclusions. That if you already wrote the conclusions, then you're basically saying almost the same thing when you're answering the evaluation questions. So you can do it there in the middle. It's also a bit of a style question, because sometimes your answer to evaluation question is like this little. So it doesn't look good by itself. So you might like put it somewhere in the middle of the text. But yes, so basically the main point about this is that first you describe the plan, and then you describe the reality. And then in the answers to the evaluation questions, you are basically trying to say how much the plan and the reality are related to each other using your judgment criteria, which you already had. So this is the typical thing about the reporting. Now, before reporting, actually, one of the things that I forgot to tell you is when I write evaluation proposals, I always include analysis phase, so that my clients also learn that analysis is not the same as reporting, and also that analysis is not the same as collecting data. But analysis is actually an important phase where you try to make sense out of the data, and especially if you have a lot of interviews, documents, surveys, quantitative data, then you need to kind of figure out that what is all of this information telling me? What is the most important thing that is coming out of all of this thing? And you need to think. That's why I like to have it as a separate step. Of course, in reality, sometimes you don't think, you just report. And then when you're typing, you're like, oh, that's interesting. But that's the bad practice. That's what you do when your scheduling fails. But in ideal case, you actually think about things. Our best, actually, the report that I am still the most proud of, and the work that I'm still most proud of, is from 2019, when we did this evaluation of the leader principles and implementation in Finland. We had a really good analysis phase, but we had so much data. We had like 50 plus interviews, 6 surveys, quantitative information, and we did focus groups, we did observational studies, and case studies and whatnot. It was like so much information. So we actually organized a kind of a hackathon for the evaluation team. So we went away to like this rural bed and breakfast for 24 hours with the team. And we started off the day by, first lunch, yes, and then it was from lunch to lunch. So we started off the day by going through all of the summaries of the data collection. It's like, what did we find? What do the surveys say? And what came out of the interviews and everything. And then we discussed. Then we had our evaluation questions and the judgment criteria. And on the basis of the discussions and the data that we had, we formulated answers to the questions. And then we also came up with, we had this one professor with us he was sitting in the corner for hours and hours. And then at 11 o'clock in the evening, he was like, I think what we are talking about really is this. And then he had the big idea, and he understood the beef of the whole thing. And then all of us were like, oh, thank you. So then we got the main point and the main finding of the entire evaluation, and so our main conclusion. And then we could structure the report and the writing so that the things, that it actually made sense, the whole of it. But it did require the team to sit together, twice. Well, first day was almost 10 hours, and second day maybe 5 hours, to discuss through everything, to see what it is that we actually find. So, but then it was easy to write, because we knew what we were going to say. In some reports, when we don't have time to think, we just write, and then later on it's this is what we're saying. Also, the other thing that I think is very useful when writing a report, especially the findings and the conclusions, and the recommendations is to actually do the PowerPoint at the same time. Because for the PowerPoint, you will have to summarize what is the most important thing. And the PowerPoint will then give you the structure for the conclusions and the recommendations. So I think that here, like to get structure for the conclusions and recommendations, that's very important. Yeah. Oh, I already went there. See, I have this PowerPoint to keep myself on track as I speak. So, so yeah. So what is important is that you, well, when you have the findings, they are the ones. Well, you have the first. As I said, first you present how it should look like. So you present the program. Then you present the findings, which are is a summarized and analyzed information based on the evaluation data collection and the secondary sources. And the findings, they really should be of good quality. We already talked about the triangulation, and that's basically like approaching the problem from several angles, so sources and informants, so that you come as close to the truth as possible. Also, you have to list the possible biases, and you need to be critical towards yourself as well. So the saying that, for example, is the coding robust and things like that. And also you have to have the findings, they have to be done through a transparent and robust analysis, so that you state how you did it, and that they will be able to copy this if possible. Because ideally, what people say about the transparency of evaluation is that the methodology should be so clear that if somebody was given the same set of information and data, they would come to the same conclusion as what you did. So that's why it should, that it should be able to like trace back to the data. Yeah, of course, all of this is based on the idea that you have enough data or information to make findings. Sometimes it's a bit shaky here and there, but in general you should have enough information that you can actually say something. Then you have the conclusions. The findings are more like, that you are discussing what you find, for example, about, let's say, the business support measures, that you talk about how they have affected the companies, what has happened in the companies, the learning of the entrepreneurs, and what is happening in the economic environment locally, and things like that. But the conclusions, they are the higher level summaries. Then you say, for example, that whether the program has been successful and where it has failed, what has been good, what has not been good, what are the development needs, and things like that. That you kind of lift yourself above the findings level, and then the findings is more like what you get from the information that you have collected, and conclusion is then your thinking and your judgment based on the analysis that there is. And then the recommendations, the calls for action. What should be changed and how? And they must be based on the conclusions. There is a direct line between the evidence, i.e. the findings, the conclusions, and the recommendations. You should never ever have a recommendation that is not based on the previous steps. Yeah.
And in the final report, So do you provide some general assessment if the program was successful or not, or just analyzing what worked, what didn't work, or should you provide some general assessment if it was successful or if it was not successful?
Yes, always. Always, yes. Yes, you need to make a general assessment. You would say that overall the program was successful, but yeah. But it didn't. Here it didn't work, and here it didn't work, and here it worked a bit different way than was planned, and you know. Or you say that overall this program was not successful. Yeah, and that's the thing. Some clients might exert some pressure for the evaluators to say what they think should be said, but unfortunately, you need to just stand up, and if it was really awful, you have to say it, but based on the evidence, not because of how you feel. But you don't have to do it in an ugly way. Sometimes it matters how you write it, how you frame it. Sometimes clients are happier if you say it. Well, I usually say it nicely, but I still say that if it didn't work, because I cannot live with myself if it didn't work and I say that it did.
And did you have some experiences that you're evaluating some program, and that program, the theory of change was not developed in a proper way, the indicators was not defined in a proper way, and then you have a problem how to evaluate that?
90% of my life is that. Yes. It's very rare to have a solid theory of change, solid intervention logic, and very good indicators. If that happens, it's fantastic, but usually it doesn't.
So you're often supposed to reconstruct the theory of change.
Yes.
And for example, if you are supposed to conduct evaluation using OECD DAC criteria, and does that mean that your conclusions are actually based, the structure of conclusion part is actually based on the criteria, or those criteria are in the findings section?
It depends a bit. You would have to, state it somewhere. It can be in the conclusions section, yes. But if the evaluation is structured in a way that that's how you have structured your data collection as well, then it would be in the findings section. Yeah, it depends a bit. But yeah, in general, it's very rare to get a good theory of change to work with. Yeah. The EU projects, I think so far in my working life I have seen the Interregs and the CBC programs. They are usually the best. And the Austrians, they're very good. But in general, it's, you go there and then you think that if this was a UN evaluation, in the UN what they do is that first they conduct the evaluability assessment. Then I think quite a lot of the programs would fall there and say that you cannot evaluate this because there's no theory of change, there's no indicators, there's nothing. But yeah, so you end up creating a theory of change, you work with whatever data you have, and you use the indicators you can use. But on the other hand, in those evaluations, you already have recommendations ready before you started the work. So they're kind of grateful from that point of view. But yes, it's usually quite hard. Yeah.
I have a question regarding recommendations. So it says no recommendations without information to back it up, which makes a lot of sense, of course. But so recently I had the case where we were evaluating a program which was supposed to support gender mainstreaming in math education, and since it was very specific and we worked with the rubric, we brought in the Tibet expert, and throughout we had consultations with her, and she mention like a couple of recommendations how this program could have been structured in the first place. So we had recommendations based on the findings of the evaluation, but we additionally decided to add some of the recommendations based on the information and expertise she has in like 20 plus years working in the field. So would it be considered information, recommendation without information to back it up? Because it goes a little bit beyond the evaluation.
In that case, I have had this case before, where we have a very good recommendation, but we need to tie it back. Then you would just add a section and say, for example, about the theory of change or intervention logic, or how the program should have been structured. So you enter information in the conclusions, or in the findings you discuss the structure of the program, so that you create the link backwards. So that, because the thing is that, when the client reads it and they are kind of like saying, like, okay, yes, I can see where this is coming from, and say, whoa, what's that? So, that when I read the report, you said nothing about this. So in a sense, that if you have a recommendation that makes sense, then, just add a section somewhere where it belongs, so that the whole thing makes sense. So, yeah, we've had this before, because sometimes you have a very good finding or a very good recommendation, but yeah, you need to be able to back it up. Yeah. Oh yeah, and then so all conclusions must be linked to a recommendation, so that if you say that something doesn't work, that you just don't forget it, but you actually link it then to a recommendation, or if it works, then say that, no need to change anything. Yeah.
Isn't it better just to have a few recommendations, just focus on those recommendations, to make sure the beneficiary of the evaluation will actually follow up on? Because what happens, from my experience, is that evaluations tend to have too many recommendations, and they're not that solid enough, because we make so many, and then when the beneficiary sees those recommendations, they get all kinds of confused, and actually kind of skip over it.
Yeah, and I think here, yes, you have to have, I would say that you have to have different levels of recommendations. We often do it so that we have like we have the conclusion and then the big recommendation about what to do. And then under that, the next tab is more detailed things. For example, improve the IT system, like some practical stuff, like improve the IT system by permitting an Excel upload of blah, blah, blah. Because these are like minor things, but that separate, in the recommendation, separate big things from small things, and consider not listing all of the small things, because then it's like a wish list. So in a sense, focus on the more important things. Okay, good. Yeah, so the recommendations, I can actually, so what we often do is that we have, that we actually often have the conclusions and recommendations in one. Depends a bit on the report, but that there's a main conclusion, and then the big recommendation, and then like smaller recommendations here and there. But yes, so it's important not to like just burden them too much. But you have to state the big ones. That's important. Okay, 2 more slides and then we're done. Oh, I don't know how this timing is going so well.
Maybe we should go to the one.
Okay, that's good. We continue from here.
We